watching Gearz, brought to you by Ram Truck.
Hey, welcome to Gearz. You know, a while back, we had the opportunity to unveil a new truck from Ram called the Express, which is a short bed, regular cab truck with a 390 horse Hemi that anybody can get for around 20 grand. That makes this the perfect platform for a person to get and modify into what they really want, which is exactly what we did with this one. Take a look. Utilizing the Mopar catalog, a bed rug, bike and luggage racks, and a folding tonneau cover were all added to the bed to make it more functional for us and Domino. The interior was upgraded with catskin leather seat upholstery, and then a kicker stereo and media center, and various trim pieces were also added. The suspension was treated to an air ride system, and then further tweaked with bigger sway bars, bigger brakes, and custom wheels and tires. Finally, the body was fitted with a Challenger-style hood, and then some custom paint stripes were put on by the guys at West Kentucky Collision Center to give the Drag N Wagon a look all its own. There's only one limitation to an Express truck. With 390 horsepower, these things are fast, but they're not Drag N Wagon fast. And if you're gonna run with the SS Camaros, the SRT8 Challengers, and the Shelby Mustangs out there, you're gonna need more balls under the hood. And we're gonna get those with a supercharger. Come on. This is the Procharger system for the Ram trucks, and as you can see, there's a pretty serious pile of parts here. You got hardware, you got hoses, you've got superchargers, intercoolers, all kinds of stuff. And a lot of you guys are probably looking at this going, ain't no way, man. Well, before you say that, let me tell you this. This system will actually add over 130 horsepower to your vehicle on pump gas with only 6 pounds of boost. Yeah. Now, the way that this works basically is your supercharger compresses air to give you a more dense blast of air. The problem is when it compresses it, it gets hot. So Procharger runs it through an intercooler. This cools the air down, so you've got a nice big dense blast of air that runs through the hoses into the engine. Of course, when you add more air, you need to add more fuel, and that's where these new fuel injectors come in. And that's basically how this system works. Now, some of the benefits of adding a supercharger is that you can drive this thing every day and never even know it's on there until you step on the pedal. You'll still get good gas mileage until you step on the pedal, and you can get it with a 5-year, 100,000-mile warranty, so you know it's going to last. The best part is, though, an average gearhead can put this in just a few hours. Here's how to do it. With the hood out of the way so you have room to work, the whole stock air intake system has got to go. Follow that with the engine cover, the belt, the grill, the coolant overflow tank, the horns, it all comes off. Okay, basically what we've done here is open up all kinds of room to fit this huge intercooler. Now, as you can see, we've got the brackets in place to mount the intercooler, and these upper brackets relocate the horns up here on top to get those out of the way, and then these lower brackets drop this power steering cooler out of the way also. So now all we have to do is bolt in the intercooler. The cooling system is the next thing to get a few modifications. And and that includes installing the heater hose spout, the thermostat housing, and modifying the upper radiator hose. Finally, remember this crazy looking overflow tank? It looks like somebody's kidney? Well, we're going to reuse this thing, but this time it's going to mount over here on the driver's side using special brackets that come with the kit, which once again shows you how well engineered this system is. The next step is this big aluminum bracket that holds the supercharger in place. Now, as you can see, this thing is 3/4 of an inch thick, so it's not going to deflect on you. It's got all the pulleys in place. It even has its own belt adjustment system built right in. The best part is, though, this thing bolts right in place on the side of the engine. With the bracket in place, the next piece to go on is the supercharger, and it just slides into the notch of the bracket and bolts in place. Hey, we're back, and right in the middle of installing a supercharger into our new Ram Express truck to see if we can get it to live up to the legacy of the original Little Red Expresses that came out in the late 70s. The Little Red Express was a bright red step-side pickup with big chrome exhaust stacks, real wood trim, and one of the fastest quarter-mile times of any production vehicle at the time. However, today's muscle cars and imports are a lot faster than they were back in the 70s. But that's okay, because the new Express is a lot faster too. And with the addition of a Procharger, that's going to put the Drag N Wagon over 500 horsepower. And that's enough to peel the doors off of just about anything. Now, as you can see, we already have the supercharger and the intercooler in place. And the rest of the installation is basically just hooking up the hoses and the tubing. Those just slide into place and are held on with hose clamps. All right, as we've said before, there's a lot of air being blown into that engine now. So we have got to upgrade the fuel injectors to get our fuel system where it needs to be. Fortunately, they come with the kit. What doesn't come with the kit is a boost gauge and a fuel pressure gauge. But as you can see, Procharger's got them, and it's definitely worth spending the extra money to get a pair of these so you can monitor what's going on with your engine. The new injectors simply mount in place of the originals using the supplied hardware. While we're in here, we're going to also upgrade our coils with these high-performance coils from MSD. Now, these don't come with the Procharger kit, but they're a wise investment if you want to get the most out of your ignition system. Okay, we have spent a lot of time doing things to help get more air and fuel into the engine. Probably wouldn't hurt to spend a few minutes doing something to help get the air out of the engine. And this catback system from Mopar is going to do just that, because it features a low restriction muffler that's going to give us better flow and a lot better sound. And you got 3-inch inlet here, dual 2.5-inch outlets, and big 5-inch polished tips, which are going to fit perfectly up in this area here and just dwarf that little 4-incher. This is how it goes in. The old exhaust system simply unbolts and drops out from under the truck with some mild persuasion. The new system goes in just as easy and utilizes the stock mounting hardware. Now that's what needs to be sticking out of the bumper. That really looks good. And that takes care of our supercharger install, ignition upgrades, and exhaust system. Now in the weeks to come, we're going to get this thing back together, upgrade the computer, and then we're going to go smoke some tires.
Now, quick tip. Brought to you by E3 Spark Plugs. Born to burn.
You know, one of the biggest frustrations that any gearhead is going to face is trying to install or remove a nut or a bolt from down in a tight area. Because if you drop it, man, you're going to spend the rest of your day trying to dig down there and find it. Fortunately, there are some simple solutions to help you out here. Now, you can take some double-sided tape and stick it down in the socket, but that's only temporary, and it's not going to do you too much good if you're dealing with a heavy bolt. Now, what you want to do is go down to your local hardware store, pick up one of these little round magnets like you use to hang pictures and things like that. Then you super glue it to the extension. Now, when you put it all together, what you've got is a magnetic socket that's going to hold whatever nuts or bolts that you're going to be using in whatever position you're going to be using them in. This little tip here will save you a ton of time and frustration. If you'd like to learn more tips that will make your life easier in the shop, check out the tips page on the website. You know, one thing that we try to do on this show is cover all aspects of the gearhead world, from sports cars to hot rods to trucks to motorcycles, airplanes, off-road vehicles, crazy stuff. If it's mechanical, it's fair game. But a lot of people don't realize that you don't have to spend a lot of money to enjoy this industry. You don't even have to work on a full-size vehicle. Matter of fact, most of us started with Hot Wheels and Matchboxes and Pinewood Derby cars and building models. The only problem with these, though, is that they didn't move under their own power. You had to push them around by hand or run them down a gravity-fed track, and models, well, you just pretty much looked at those. And after a while, most kids got tired of just looking at them, and that's usually when the gasoline and the firecrackers came out. Then, of course, there's the radio control world that can give you a great driving experience and get you in a lot of trouble. But there is another thing that we haven't talked about here, something that has the excitement of radio control, the detail of model building, and the fun of a Hot Wheels track. It's called slot cars. Check it out. Now, the idea for the slot car was pretty simple. Put an electric motor in a model car so that it would move under its own power. Now, of course, that electric motor needed electricity, and that came from metal strips in the track that ran alongside of a slot that was designed to hold the car on the track. So popular was this idea that before long, every kid in America was begging for a slot car track.
During the exclusive new Gilbert flyover chicane. Watch the stock cars in slow motion. Up and go.
Now, early slot cars were pretty crude, but that didn't matter. People loved them, and for decades, slot cars ruled. But after a while, as time marched on and new toys came out, the interest in slot cars waned until you hardly ever hear about them anymore. But just because you haven't heard about them much lately doesn't mean they're not still around and haven't evolved over the years. Matter of fact, about the only thing that a vintage slot car set has in common with the new stuff is the slot. Carrera is one of the largest manufacturers of slot cars in the world, and their specialty is large 1/32nd and 1/24th scale cars. And these are incredibly detailed models of modern and vintage race cars, street machines, muscle cars, even police cars. But they're not just fancy paint jobs, no. These things feature working headlights, tail lights, brake lights, all kinds of stuff.
Back when I was a kid, slot cars really weren't quite as highly detailed as they are today. And I think mainly the detail really attracted me to them.
Now, just like the original slot cars, these modern slot cars are still powered by electric motors. But now there's all kinds of tweaks and adjustments you can do to them, so you can fine-tune the speed and the handling of the cars to match the style and difficulty of the track that you're running on.
Well, you can just buy them and you can run them out of the box, and most people do that. But you can do tuning to the cars. Basically anything you can do to a real car, you can do to a slot car except get inside.
Of course, the biggest drawback to slot cars in the past has been the slot itself. You had two different vehicles running on two different lanes, and that was it. Well, that has all changed with digital control. Now you can run numerous cars at the same time in the same lane. You can pass, you can cut them off, you can run people off the road. You actually have to drive these things, and each car has its own unique handling characteristics.
Carrera makes a wide variety of accessories. We make grandstands, like you said. We make little mechanics, little people to sit in the grandstands. We make spectator towers. We make pit buildings that can sit alongside your track, and you can put the little mechanics, sort of pose them in front next to the cars in the pits.
And when you add to that the incredible detail and the realism of these cars, well, you'd swear they'd almost drive themselves. Now, this is not your dad's slot car set. This is a whole nother world, and what you can do with it is limited only to your imagination.
Hey, this race is starting to get interesting.
Yeah, it is.
Car 23, we got some reckless driving. We need some help out here.
This is a good time to cross the road.
Well, why in the world would you want to do that?
I'll tell you on the other side.
Holy flying feathers, Batman. What was that?
Yes, Robin, I believe we just hit a giant plastic chicken.
All right, men, here they come. Everybody get ready.
That's just great. It's like, hey, man, it's your fault. What do you think you're doing?
There is no way you just did that.
I'm surrounded by idiots.
I would.
What's going on?
That, hey, what's this?
Get out of my mouth.
That's not my.
Biting me.
It's not my foot.
What are you working on? Brought to you by Royal Purple, the performance oil that outperforms.
Today's What Are You Working On comes from Jim and Linda Racinowski from Whitewater, Wisconsin. And their project is a 1935 Terraplane two-door sedan. And they said when they found this thing, it was basically being used as a garbage can. So needless to say, they got it pretty cheap. Now, here's a shot of the day that they picked it up. Looks like Jim's having some second thoughts there. But it didn't take him long to start tearing apart. Check this out. The body was lifted off of the frame, and then some serious work started. The top was chopped 2 1/4 inches. A Mustang 2 suspension was put in front. A 350 Chevy engine went together for power. And then the whole car started to come back together. As you can see, there was a lot of prepping and sanding and painting that went on, and more prepping and sanding and painting. For 15 years this went on until finally out rolled the finished car. Now, one of the most unique things about this project is that Jim says it was all pretty much done with floor jacks, jack stands, and the strong backs of Rick, Bob, Carl, and Andy. But he says he mostly wants to thank his wife, Linda, for putting up with his, well, I can't say that on the air, Jim, you know that. But, so, for Linda, for putting up with Jim's stuff over the years, we're gonna help you out because we hooked up with our buddies at Royal Purple, and we're gonna give you a bunch of stuff to deck out your shop. Like stools and bags and clothing and clocks, even a case of oil to keep that car running for a long time. And Jim, we haven't forgotten about you. We're gonna give you a year's subscription to Hot Rod Magazine so you can get some ideas for your next project. Now, for the rest of you guys, if you wanna get in on this, get your vehicle featured on the show, you gotta go to staceydavid.com and submit it into What Are You Working On. We will do our best to get it on the air. All right, that takes care of it for today. It is time for you to get out there and smoke some tires. We'll see you next week.